I'm Stacy Stockton, the media specialist at Sheridan High School.
I'm Jason Burks, principal at Sheridan High School.
I'm Morgan Wilson, math teacher at Sheridan High School.
And I'm Summer Williams. I'm a literacy instructional specialist.
So we started this whole thing about 2 years ago. We had our leadership team developed a building goal of increasing our ACT Aspire and our ACT scores by 9% over 3 years. This last summer, we looked at data, the ACT data specifically, and noticed a few things. We noticed we had a huge amount of our students, a big chunk of our students scoring in the 14 to 17 range, and that over the last 4 to 5 years, our composite was pretty steady at about 18. At 18. We also, through conversations with the teachers, realized that we need some baseline data for these juniors. We don't have any existing data for the juniors. We have it after the fact, but we don't have anything coming into the school year. So from that conversation, we took that to the leadership team, and we had some conversation and decided, okay, what do we need to do in the classroom? Because there's not a lot of things that we do specifically in the classroom to help students for the ACT. Through that came what we call some data moments, where each department developed some questions specifically, and we looked at the ACT content and what the students struggle in, and looked at questions due in the classroom.
Yeah.
And
would you like me to tell you some more about that? So we did look at some specific data for math specifically, and then each department was looking at their own data, and we decided where we have had weaknesses in the past with junior ACT testing. And we've always had students who struggle for math in areas of probability and statistics, and so we chose some problems that we think would help them. And first we did 3 to 4 problems. Every math teacher did it in all their classes, so we had data that went from 10th grade up to 12th grade, and we could specifically look at it as juniors or sophomores. And we went back and had conversations about what they got correct and what they missed, and then we developed new questions after we talked to students about those and about how they could approach those problems in different ways, and we assessed them again and came back and had more conversations. And I even talked to an English teacher, and they said that they were working on just some main rules with commas and semicolons, just things that students tend to miss frequently on the ACT, and it really exposed them to some of the problems that maybe they hadn't seen yet if they hadn't taken the ACT, and they had conversations about the right way to approach each problem. And so the department had a lot of discussions about data that helped us make decisions about what we were doing.
And those data moments also revealed students telling us they haven't had enough exposure, they weren't familiar, and they needed more exposure to the ACT, and so that led to some of our next steps.
And the great thing sitting in some of those meetings is looking at that data and then talking about next steps. So it wasn't just like you had a couple of questions about probability, they took it and then we moved on. Y'all did that. You really looked at why did students answer this, why did they answer it wrong, really analyzing that data and saying, okay, so what are our next steps? And we did that several times in the fall semester, and that was just really good conversation.
It was good.
I think a good point of it was that this was all in response to student need. We have a strong student voice on our campus, and they had said, we feel like we're not prepared for the ACT, and honestly, we weren't doing a good job. So we took that feedback, and I think it's important that throughout the whole process, we let them know, hey, we're doing these data moments to prepare you. These are some of the kinds of questions you'll see. This is the terminology that you might see on the test. So students were part of the process with us, and they knew, okay, we're working towards the same goal. And so in every department, it was so cool to see every PLC at the same time coming together and saying, this is what our kids are strong in, this is what they're weak in, all in regards to the ACT. So it was a huge effort, it was very successful, and it was all based around student voice in that data, which really set us off on the right foot, I think, to helping students.
And this was every department, so even CTE, Fine Arts, they were involved in the reading.
Reading, yeah.
And it wasn't, one thing I didn't want it to be is, I want you to do ACT practice in your accounting class.
Right.
How can you format some questions that are ACT-like but are still in your content? So that helped them, it was successful
Yes.
for them too.
They did a great job of taking texts that were already in their classroom, and they looked heavily at vocabulary and vocabulary skills, which is, you know, very prevalent on the ACT. So, and they all got together with different passages from different CTE courses and said, how did your kids do? What do you think their thinking was? So it was neat to see how something authentic to their class still helped further ACT skills.
It also helped us, things that we think kids know how to do. When you're faced with data, you realize, oh, well, they don't know how to do it, or they're not prepared for this. And so, you know, it gave you a lot more understanding about where your kids actually were.
I think what came next was really neat too. You know, we took the data moment and then we decided, based on what the teachers had said, a lot of our kids, what was the number for how many kids hadn't taken the ACT?
65%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2/3.
Two-thirds.
Only about a third of them had taken it before.
So our teacher said, I loved it when our teacher said, can we just give a baseline test? And we said, you know what, we can do that. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Anybody can do that. It was a very quick process. We threw that together. But I think it was really a big push and really a cool thing when we were able to say, you're going to take a practice ACT test, juniors, and we're going to collect your data, and we are going to take action based on that data. And so no one will enter the February ACT not having seen an ACT test before.
Right. You know,